Today's edition of the podcast is brought to you by Coach Me Plus. Coach Me Plus is the leader in athlete management software and a product that I've been lucky enough to be using for a little over a year now. Only rivaled by the impeccable customer service that Kevin and his staff provides, Coach Me Plus's ability to constantly be amoeba-like in their ability to mold and matriculate what you're trying to get across and bring together is absolutely fantastic. Their constant pursuit of better ways and better methods and innovations and progress to their own product is absolutely fantastic. Go over to CoachMePlus.com. Check out what they got, guys. It's something that I guarantee you won't be disappointed with. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today, guys, we're going to sit down and talk with the University of Missouri's Dr. Bryan Mann. We're going to have a few big announcements. We're going to talk about the latest and greatest from Dr. Mann, some new research he's doing and the happenings at Mizzou, and some other things that he's got going on. Some awesome stuff, guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's get right to it. The first three-time guest on the podcast.
Yes. Hey. Somebody had to be first to do it. I'm glad it's me.
Yeah, man.
I told you, man. I'm like the co-host here.
No doubt. We're going to have to make that happen sooner than later. So let's start talking about something that is going on today. What just happened today?
What just happened is the third edition of the Velocity-Based Training Book finally went live. Man, I'm excited about this. It's been a long time coming in more ways than one. I had to take this one from ebook, so some people are going to be upset about that, to a paper copy. And I had to do that because of this whole thing about being a professor and academic credit and shit like that. Oops. And stuff like that. Got to turn the filter on. I haven't had enough caffeine yet. So, we're going through Ultimate Athlete Concepts. They were gracious enough to help me out with the publication of it. So, man, it's what it is. There's like 35, I think, 40 new pages of content in there. Go into a lot more depth into a lot of topics, and I added a lot in. There's new stuff coming out all the time, and there's so much new stuff coming out all the time that, I've already started working on a fourth edition, which, it'll take a couple years to get done. Because I don't want to just add like 5 pages here, 5 pages there. I mean, whenever the fourth edition comes out, I've got no doubt that it's going to be well over 100, 110, 120 pages.
Right. So we're talking, you just said 30 extra pages.
Yeah, man.
So we're talking like, that's 15% more information.
It might be 50. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. It's just, you're staying up with the science because there's the stuff that I've been doing, but the stuff that I've been doing is very minuscule because I don't, whenever I was a coach, I'm not technically a coach anymore, which is a little sad, but it's okay. You've got your athletes to take care of. Now that I'm a professor, you're like, oh, you're a professor, you got time to research. Well, dude, I don't go and get grant money. Let me shut my email off so it doesn't keep doing that ding-dong thing. My job is to teach because I don't get NIH funding, because they're never going to fund sport. People are like, oh, there's lots of money in sport. Yeah, right, man. Yeah, you tell me the funding agency that's out there for sport, and I'm going to jump on it right now. So, I'm looking at a lot of the stuff that the Spaniards have put out, some of Dan Baker's stuff. Eamon Flanagan over in Ireland has done some amazing things. And we don't all agree on everything, but the amazing thing to me is the tremendous amounts of overlap, and we're going. I think the third edition right now, we go into a great amount of detail of a lot of things, and then the fourth edition, I think that I'm going to be going into more stuff with accelerometer units and using not just a linear position transducer, not just using like a GymAware. Being able to do more things with it and opening things up a little bit. Third edition, if you're using LPT of any type, Tendo, GymAware, what's that really cheap one that's out there? I think they're out by you, man.
I don't even know. I have gym aware, so I don't know.
Yeah, stick with GymAware. This is fantastic. It's something where you can like open source the coding, so it's kind of it's got potential, but it's man, it's kind of like whenever I was looking at it, it reminded me of one of our bioengineer here made a LPT, and he made it for about $7. So you can make them really cheap. It's the coding and the software and the interfaces that cost a lot of money because it takes a lot of time to develop. Uh, and that's an open source coding, so that's kind of cool. If somebody's a computer tech, they can go to that. And God, I wish I could remember the name of it. But like you, I've got GymAware. What do I care?
Right.
So this third edition, if you've got LPT, this is the book to get. The fourth edition that I'm going to start working on, I've already started working on. That'll have more stuff for the accelerometer, but we're looking about 2 years out on that because you know what? I got to play around with some of them and learn them better. I know the LPT like the back of my hand. It's the accelerometers that are different.
Right.
Yeah, Carl Valley did a live test, and I missed it, man. I was in Brazil. I just realized that. So I need to call him and see how the live test went to see, because we see if one accelerometer was better than the others.
Right. But that's available through Yosef's site. The link will be below. We everything, this is like the best of both worlds. We got B-Man and Yosef Johnson working together, collaborating, putting something out. This is big time stuff. So we're pretty stoked about that. So get on that, folks. Don't miss out on this. Anybody that's picked up a copy of this before has found infinite value in the information. So if you haven't toyed around with it and you haven't looked into it, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So there's other news too, and this is kind of big news for me.
Big news for me too.
Yeah, man. We are now going to start breaking out the lineup for the 2017 seminar in July, the weekend after National, out in Vegas, right here at the University of Richmond. And the first speaker we are going to announce is Dr. Bryan Mann. And
yes.
And how we're going to do this is a little different for our listeners and people who are involved in the seminar and have been around. We have 2 topics that Doc is looking at speaking on, and we're going to talk about those a little bit, and then there'll be a Survey Monkey that we'll put on Facebook, Twitter, and underneath here as well, where you guys are going to pick the direction that Dr. Mann goes. So, Doc, let's start rolling through those so people can have an understanding, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, the first one is more like the advances in velocity-based training. That there are the zones, and then there's some more stuff that's come out recently. And some of the zones, people don't like, and it's okay. Yes, if you go with an individual velocity profile, it's going to be more accurate. I get that completely, but let me tell you something. If you're dealing with 501 athletes and 10 other coaches, you try staying on the same page with 501 different individual velocity profiles. So there's the velocity zones that I want to go ahead and, we'll be going beyond that. So there's some fantastic research that has come out of Spain. And it's actually some of the stuff that I've kind of found on my own on what works best. And they actually, some of the things that I want to look at and possibly present on this summer is selective hypertrophy. Hank talks about it all the time with Werner Gunther. And we've got some different ways of looking at velocity beyond just the zones to even some drop-offs that show, hey, you know what, if you do it this way, if you go with this percentage of drop-off, as long as you're hitting with maximal intent on every repetition, these are the fiber adaptations, right? And so if you need, and there's not saying that there's something that's good or that there's bad, there just is, and it's what that person happens to need. If the person needs indiscriminate hypertrophy, right, they've got, who would that be? Well, it'd be somebody who's just a little light in the ass and they're just weak, right? They need indiscriminate hypertrophy. They need to be able to have the type 1 and type 2 fibers get as big as possible. But now let's think about this. What about somebody who wants to be a shot putter, right? Or somebody wants to be an Olympic weightlifter? Well, that's a completely ATP, PC, immediate energy system. What's the other? Phosphocreatine system. That's the system that's got energy system that's got like, I don't know, 150 different names that I keep hearing people refer to, and it's all that, first 10 seconds. What does that person need? Well, all that person is going to need is type 2 fibers and the type of stuff that Werner Gunther did. Well, of course, there's the things that Werner did, but if we wanted to look at barbells and strengthening and try and get max strength and max power and just the type 2 hypertrophy, there's ways to do it with velocity and the drop-offs. And there's been some fantastic stuff there. And also, looking at developing power and doing it in different means from just the zones for different exercises. Because, I mean, dude, the zones work for, and here's a thing that, the zones work for squat, bench, deadlift, basically, right? And you've got some other exercises that fit in there. Well, there's other exercises that may be very applicable for a sport that it doesn't work for, right? I've never had crew, so I've never looked at anything like a bench row. And the velocity, the terminal velocity on that is like 0.5 meters per second. Well, if you look at the traditional zones, that's, something different, right? That's accelerative strength. And there, so you're not achieving 1 RM on that. So looking at ways of developing power on what I would consider a non-traditional lift that would have a high transfer to that individual sport. So looking at some things like that, man. So that's that one avenue that I'm looking at. Do we want to break into two, or you got questions on number one?
Well, I think with number one, what I think is really interesting is that is actually a lot of the questions that I've had. So selfishly, I like that quite a bit because I think that looks at a lot of the things that when people look at VBT, where they kind of trip up a little bit.
Okay.
But let's touch on number two, and then we can kind of bounce back and forth.
Okay, number two, do you think I could screen share and it'll jack things up or not?
No, go ahead.
All right, man, let's share screens. I want to pull this up and hit start. All right, can you see my little graph here?
Yep.
Okay, so this is from the 2016 NSCA National Conference. This is I don't know what they call them, podium presentation or something. It's a poster, but they wanted me to talk about it. If we look here, this dotted line is the traditional style of periodization that we've done and everybody has done and has been found by Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, and Dayton in studies on Division I football. The Dayton study, I don't know if that was their team, if it was 1AA, or if the researchers got data from somewhere else. I read it, but it's been a while and I don't remember. But here's the deal. We see that by getting stronger, this is just power, right? We could have done the strength thing over here, but guess what, man? I ain't that freaking sharp with this type of stuff, and neither are my co-writers to be able to make these fancy graphs. But strength improved significantly every year. They PR'd on their squat every year. What happened to power? Year 1 to year 2, there was a small increase. Year 2 to 3 was flat. Year 3 to 4, it was flat. Using velocity, it increased, it got flat. Now, we know that with the velocity, it causes improvements. But here's the deal, is that there's a lot more to the jump than just the jump. So what I want to do is come over here really quick to this. Let's do this. Let's zoom in a little bit so that it'll definitely show up. I deleted players' names, of course. Mm-hmm. But what we're looking at here is the jump and the way that the jump was derived. And we'll also get over to the far right and we'll see some isometric mid-thigh pull, just the peak force. I don't have the time bands on here because I've got to find a more efficient way to get the time bands and the gradients from the mid-thigh pull. But basically, one of my favorite quotes is from Isaac Newton, and is if I have seen further than other men, it is only because I've stood upon the shoulders of giants. I've spoken with people that are way smarter than me. I like Cal, where I always try and keep that the dumbest guy in the room mentality. That I'm not afraid to ask questions for that. So I've been speaking with people like Tim Suckamel, Jeremy Shepard, Greg Hoff, and Adam Beard, and these people have turned me on to some amazing things. And one of them will start out is just simply the way that the jump is done and the way that the force is derived. So I've used dual Pasco force plates. So that setup's like $800, as you well know. Here's what we got. We got our peak jump force that's total. Then we got how it's broken out left and right. Our peak landing force, which is always going to be higher. How much higher? I got to figure that out, man. I got to figure that out. There's not much that's out there in the sport world, but there is in the biomechanics world. Peak landing force, the first time I heard of that was whenever Dr. Guest sent me this. And, this is why you work with people smarter than you. Peak landing force is something that they use in the joint replacement and prosthetics world to see, is it going to hold up and what activities can you do? And the jarring forces. And then I call Tim Hewitt up and I'm like, hey, I've got this data. Would this, if somebody's extremely high on it, would it be a sign of ligamentum dominance? And he said, absolutely it would. And ligamentum dominance, that means that the people land on their ligaments instead of using muscular force. Now, we know it's going to be higher. Why is it going to be higher? Why should it be higher unless they do something funny? Like you look here at this one, like what happened on that? How I thought it was supposed to be higher. Yeah, dude, he didn't land on the plate, so the mat absorbed a lot of it. And most of what I care about is here, so that this is just something I'm looking at. Why is it always going to be higher? We've got the acceleration of gravity pulling us down at that 9.846 meters per second squared or something like that. Somebody's going to bust me on that. People love doing that. I don't remember what it is. If I wanted to know, I would look it up right now. We have that left and right. Now here's what we've got. We've got flight time and time to take off. Now flight time is how long you're in the air. Time to take off is an estimate, not an estimate, it's a measurement of when you started the movement until your toes leave the platform. Okay? So those two combined give us, come all the way over here, to reactive strength index modified. Okay? Now we see that there's all of this crap, right? There's a whole bunch of numbers here. And whenever a coach looks at this, all these numbers, as we keep going over, right? It's like drinking from a fire hose. What matters? For me right now, the peak force, the peak power, and the RSI modified. That's what I care about. Now, why do I care about the RSI modified so much? Basically, this is telling us how springy and reactive the person is. Now, this isn't like Eamon Flanagan's reactive strength index, who also, let's see, I believe Dave Hamilton has done a lot of work on. I say it's Eamon Flanagan's because he's the first person that I really heard about it from and saw work on it from. But it's been around a long time where it's that drop jump, right? And they do it, it was a 20, 30, 40 in centimeters, and maybe there's some more centimeter things that are in there. Well, if we just take the regular counter movement jump, we can get more information from it, okay? We can take the time to take off divided by the flight time divided by time to take off. It gives us this nice little number that lets us know, how is this person dealing with force. And you see the stuff that's highlighted in red. Well, what I've done is I've gone through and I just use conditional formatting to look at a standard deviation above, a standard deviation below the mean, the team mean. Now, what is the number that I need to be looking at? I don't know yet. Okay, we've got to be working on that, and I think that we're going to need to look at it per sport. Now, let's keep going over here. We've got our average power, relative power, whatever. Peak jump forces, allometrically scaled. Here we've got isometric mid-thigh pull. So we've got their peak force on that. Now, if you remember Zatsiorsky's book, Science and Practice of Strength Training, at least the green cover, I've never read the one with Dr. Kramer on it. It's nothing against it. It's just that I'm a poor white boy, baby. I can't afford to go buying a whole bunch of new books. But if it's through Ultimate Athlete Concepts, I'm going to have it read. If it's not, and I've got to buy it. It's going to take some time, and I've got to find a way to buy it without my wife hearing about it. But this isometric mid-thigh pull, now what is it? It's mid-thigh pull from what the Olympic lifting community calls a mid-thigh pull, which is really like a top of the thigh pull. It's where, you're in that upright posture and your knees slightly bent. It's right before you hit that second pull, which is where peak force occurs. So that's the peak force number from it. Like I said, I don't have the bands and the gradients in here because I've got to find a better way to analyze that. And that's why I'm working with Dr. Guess, because this guy's been using force plates for like 25 years. He knows this stuff like the back of his hand. Now, what that gives us, again, is the dynamic strength deficit from Zatsiorsky. And basically, that's just telling us how explosive is somebody in relative how strong they are. What do they need to do? What do they need to improve upon to improve in athletics? Do they need to work on their rate of force development? Do they need to work on their isometric? Do they need to work on their total strength? And between the peak force on the jump, the peak force on the pull, RSI mod, and dynamic strength deficit, between those two tests and those four metrics, I've got a pretty damn good idea, right? If somebody has a great dynamic strength deficit, but they can't jump and they're weak, guess what we need to do? We need to get stronger. What if somebody has got a great peak power on the jump, but they have on the pull, but they don't have one on the jump? They need to work on their explosive strength, the rate of force development. What if they've got a great power on the jump, but a low RSI mod? Well, it means they need to work on their reversal, right? The isometric phase, if you're looking at, like Cal's stuff. Between these just few metrics, it can give us a lot to know on what somebody needs to develop. So, that's the thing that I'm really kind of geeking out about, because what we've done is with a couple of the teams here, we've started collecting this data with baseball, wrestling. We did it in the off season. We'll do it again in the spring after the season's over and through the summer, et cetera. Softball and a few other sports are starting to jump on. And what we're trying to do is see, small interventions and what are the impacts on it. So I want to go ahead and stop sharing here. I'm getting a little choppy on my end. I don't know if it is on yours.
No, it's coming out great, man.
Okay, fantastic. So, that's the other thing that I'm looking at, and I'm fired up about it. I'm probably fired up about it because it's so new, but I'm always fired up about velocity stuff too. So, right. Hence the conundrum. I don't know what to present on.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be neat to see where the people want to see. Let's give the people what they want. If the profession's asking for something, let's drive it in that direction. Now, there's other reasons why I like the second one, because of more announcements that are going to be coming in the near future.
Ooh.
Yes, dun dun dun. Stay tuned, folks. Be coming back, because there's connections there as well. And if
now hold on, Jay. I just want to say one thing on this. I just doing all the traveling that I've been doing. I've been watching Game of Thrones. I just hit the end of season 6. I didn't realize there wasn't a season 7 yet. So now you're telling me there's more to come, and I did that 2 days ago, and now you're telling me there's more to come, and there's more things, and there's a cliffhanger. I don't know if my heart's going to take it, Jay.
Well, then, I'm sorry. But no, each week we're going to keep adding another presenter, either through the podcast or through a Q&A intro, and there's a direct connection with the second talk to one of our presenters, and if you've listened to the podcast in the past, we actually spoke about it with that individual. So, yes, there is an Easter egg out there. What I really like about the first idea is that it can sit there and we can start to quantify different things. And I think that when you're talking selective hypertrophy, I think that's super important, because I think that connecting again with another presenter who we'll get to, I believe he's going to be announced in 2 weeks. When we're talking about dealing with athletes that work in the water, we don't have a lot of ideas or realities as to what actually works, but we do have a pretty good idea of fiber typing. So looking at that, I think, could be huge for people that work in that realm at least. And then looking at the second talk, understanding what's important and why, I think, is always important. So 2 really fascinating ideas and things that could really help people.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to get them both out there at some point. Maybe one's in 17 and one's in 19 or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just throwing that out there,
To give even a little bit more background, if there were questions people asked, like if we're looking at the second one, how are we going to get into training information and things to support what that data shows and like directional things based on what that information is showing us.
Right. So I've got just a little bit, and I'm hoping to have a lot more by then, by being able to do some small interventions here and there, where we're looking at like, okay, like I've sat down with the coach, and it's up to the coach. I'm going to be completely honest. The coach should take my recommendation. It's like, okay, this guy, here's what he's got: this great power, he's got this really low RSI mod. He probably ought to do things like the wave squat. Like, did Kip do those?
Yeah, the old
Yeah, so
Dvorak wave squats.
yeah, you dropping down and popping back up on the toes really
Yep.
fast with load, and doing things like that, for that quick reversal. But and what's going to happen is I don't know, and that is what's so exciting right now to me. This is like 1999, 2000 with the velocity stuff, so that's what really, really excites me. And there's some people out there that probably know better than I do, like Jeremy Shepard. Like, he's the guy that coined, they wrote the paper on dynamic strength difference. You'll see it also on, no, dynamic strength deficit is what he called it. There's another paper that's out there by, I can't remember who the author is, but they also said it was dynamic strength index. So those two things are exactly the same metric.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think the second person didn't know that the first person had already written the paper. And that's the booger about stuff with in research, is if there's only one or two things that are already out there, if your key search, your key term search is off by a letter, sometimes you won't find it. And but both of those things, man, and I'm going to be talking with Jeremy Shepard. Dude, why am I going to try and go out and do something all on my own? I'm going to be talking with Tim Suckamel. I'm going to be talking with these guys. They've already done some of this stuff. Why in the hell would I try and think that I'm smarter than them when they've been doing this work for years? So, there's stuff that's out there, and I probably just haven't came across it yet, or they haven't published it yet. So we're going to be working towards it. That might be a better thing in a few years for whenever I've actually got stuff on it. But, by God, this is $800, Jay. A damn jump mat is what, between $600 and $700?
Yeah, I was gonna say like 550, but somewhere in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, well, still, so for not much more than a jump mat, you can get all this additional information.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also get in with the right-left difference. And I think that, to me, that's something that we've got to be out and shouting to the rooftops. And, there's some other companies that are coming out now, too. Well, Vernier has already been out with the other 1D force plates. And there's some that are coming out that are bigger and dual for more money and better analysis. Now, I will say that the spreadsheet that I just showed isn't from Pasco software. That spreadsheet that I just showed, I mean, obviously it's Excel, so it's not from their software. But Dr. Guest used, MATLAB, I believe is the name of it, or LabVIEW, I can't remember, to analyze our raw data. And that's where this came from. Where this thing is like, I don't know, 25K, 50K, something like that. The original raw data file that I sent him was 12 megabytes. So, we're looking at, you've got to have some analysis. So if you don't have somebody on campus, you're probably better off spending a little bit more money and getting a software or a combined system that does all that for you.
No, it's pretty awesome. And yeah, we've gotten to toy around with it a little bit too. And, I'd used the jump mats before, and I think it gives a lot of just like quality, simple stuff that you can look at and figure out real quick. And
Yeah.
it's not for, when you're talking about what you get for what you pay for, I think that it isn't a bad idea for a lot of people, especially like if you could get interns to run the numbers, it's really not that bad.
Yeah, and if you've got somebody on campus who can write code with MATLAB or LabVIEW, as long as they do it in a set way. And what we're doing now is we're holding the PVC pipe on the back. We're waiting for 2 seconds of a flat line on our Pasco thing, and then telling them to jump. Well, by doing it that standardized approach, we can code that sucker, man. And then there's going to be some outliers that they're going to have to go back in and do, but it takes them no time. It's a button push.
Yeah.
Jay, real quick, I'm so sorry to do this. This is coming out like right now, isn't it?
Yeah, today or tomorrow.
Okay, so coaches conference. I've got several things at the coaches conference to push. There's the roundtable where we're going to be talking about issues and the roundtables are basically it's the first day, it's Wednesday. I can't remember what time, but we always have a great time talking about issues that are going on in the field, and it's a roundtable in the fact that everybody sits around a bunch of roundtables as it's been every year, and we share discussions throughout a huge group of a couple hundred people. I've got my talk on deeper than the data, and this is one of my favorite talks. That basically it's how to get more out of what you are already doing, and that schedule and time is up on the website. And then the college SIG, of which I'm the chair, we're going to have our regular business, and then I've got to text him to make sure he's still in. But Carl Valley coming in doing a special guest Q&A.
Awesome.
So people can ask anything that they want. So I wanted to go ahead and throw that stuff out there. It's still open election time, open nomination time for the NSCA. So there's people out there who complain about things that somebody should be doing this, somebody should be doing that. Yeah, you know what? Here's your time to put up or shut up, baby.
Yeah.
You either jump on board and do something to make the change that you think needs to happen, or you can just shut the hell up because I hate whining.
No doubt, man. Don't be one of those kids sitting out of class who didn't vote.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
So if you want to make a change, run.
Yes.
Want to make a difference, run.
Yeah.
So,
No, awesome. Or at least vote for someone that you're going to be appreciative of the effort they're going to put in and is going to give a voice for you.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I'll get in touch with Scott and make sure we link that up too below
Okay.
because, all the work you guys do with that, people need to take a look at that and be involved and make sure that this isn't just a flash in the pan. So, links below. We've got a link to the book. We've got a link to the Survey Monkey of which do you want to see. VBT 2017 with the selective hypertrophy or the jump analysis versus the mid-thigh pull and what we're seeing with training and how that's impacting it. And then the third and final link below is going to be a direct link to the NSCA Coaches Conference. So start clicking away, folks. Check out all that. And Doc, killer as always, brother. Always great to catch up.
Always great, Jay.
Yeah, man. Appreciate your time, buddy. And this will be up tomorrow, which will be today when people are listening to it. So
Well,
appreciate
fantastic.
it, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, my man. We'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good.
And a huge thank you to Dr. Bryan Mann for spending the time with us today. Guys, huge announcements all over the place. VBT Volume 3 is out. It's always a great resource. Pick it up. There's a link below to Yosef's page. It'll also be on sale in the CVA SPS store. If you use VBT, you understand how great of a resource this is. I can't recommend Dr. Mann's work enough. Grab it, guys. It's big time. And, of course, the huge announcement that Dr. Mann will be back in Richmond this July for the 2017 seminar. Please take literally as long as it takes for your browser to open the page and for you to pick one or the other to let us know which topic you want Dr. Mann to cover. We're going to give you guys what you want. Like I've said at the seminar in the past, we do our best to bring in the people you guys want to hear from, and we want to bring the topics you guys want as well. So please click the second link, pick one or the other, and we'll make that happen this July. And finally, guys, the third link, make sure you check it out, the Coaches Conference. It's right around the corner. All the work Dr. Mann and Scott Caulfield are doing for the profession, guys. I can't recommend this weekend enough. Check it out. I hope that you guys can make it out because they're doing fantastic things for the profession. And on top of that, vote in the NSCA elections. If you aren't going to run yourself, make sure you find somebody that you can support and is going to help continue to push the profession in a positive manner the same way that Doc and Scott have done it. Scott, thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Doc, again, thank you for organizing these things. And thank you again for taking the time with us today. We're stoked to have you back in July, buddy. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed the talk, please share it to the social media outlet of your choice. Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be. Again, just trying to get information out to coaches. whether it be through the manual, the seminar, or the podcast. So share away, guys. We're really excited for July. We're starting the intros today, and we're going to get through everybody, hopefully by the end of January. We're going to have the date finalized, hopefully here too in the next 10 days. So that'll be coming out soon too. And as always, guys, thank you so much for everything you do for us here at Central Virginia Sport Performance. We'll be back again next week with another awesome guest. We will see you then.